So we have a very exciting panel today on Latinx and impact and leadership. And I feel extremely happy and actually honored to share this panel with all these amazing people. I know some of them personally and others for sure. We're going to become really close friends in the future. So my name is Maica Gil. I'm the founder of the San Francisco International Women Entrepreneurs Forum. I'm also the founder of Heroica. And I'm going to briefly introduce the panel and actually what we're going to be talking about. So we have with us today Soledad Toledano, cyber security engineer from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and also the founder of Girls Can Hack. We also have Joe Vasquez, co-director of Runway Incubator. He's very brave to be around so many women. Carolina Huaranca Mendoza, principal at Capor Capital. Rocío Medina Nierop, director of product marketing at Prezi and also co-founder of Latinas in Tech. And Lilibeth Gangas, chief technology community officer at Capor Center for Social Impact. Let's give them a big applause, no? So we all know that the Latinx situation in tech, sometimes it could be kind of a song between Maluma and Ricky Martin.
Shakira.
Shakira, sometimes. But when we're talking about visibility, collaboration, and leadership, it could be a bolero from Chavela Vargas. So today, we all know the data that is out there for the Latinx community in tech. We know that 1 to 3% of Latinx in tech positions are right now for Latinx. We have that 3 to 5% in leadership positions in tech, which is not that much. And I was really curious when we were preparing this panel. So I went out there, outside our community, and I started asking people in tech from different communities, investors, and so on, what they thought about us, you know? What was our perception, the perception that they had about us. And one of the three things that came up during this conversation was always the lack of leadership, visibility, and collaboration. And I think that this awesome panel today is going to prove many things wrong and many myths about the Latinx community in tech. So I want you right now to get to know better each individual in this panel. So my first question, or my first two questions to all of them, since we have limited time, is how did you get where you are right now, and why you do what you're doing currently? So Joe, Sole, Carolina, Lily, Rocío, who wants to start? Don't be shy. Okay, let's go, Carolina.
I always like to go first. So to tell a little bit about myself, you need to know something about my parents. So my parents left Peru as essentially political refugees. My dad literally had to wave a white flag during a shoot-to-kill curfew so my mom could deliver a baby. So as you can imagine, being able to pick up your bags and go to a new country to start all over, even though my dad was college educated, my mom was an entrepreneur, takes a lot of risk-taking. So I've kind of grown around that sentiment all throughout my life. My parents chose, rather than go to Miami, chose to set up in an all-white neighborhood in Long Island, New York, which was very random. But there actually was intentionality behind it. The intentionality behind it was that there were good schools, given the zip code, and although my dad had a college education, he had to start as a line factory worker because there were a bunch of consumer technology companies there. So it was a very humbling experience. So I was around entrepreneurship, technology, and then this all-white neighborhood where identity also became an issue. So I'm talking about these themes because they shape who I am and the journey to get me to be a VC. So what ended up happening there essentially was that I didn't really understand what my identity was until my parents started telling me more about kind of our family. So my grandparent, I have a grandparent that's Afro-Peruvian, I have another grandparent that's Chinese-Peruvian. So when you think about Latinx, for me, it was always about an ethnicity and different races, right? We're Black, we're Indigenous, we're Asian, we're all these things. So having that really strong sense of self was very important to me. Fast forward, ended up going to Cornell, ended up in education technology, and had the fortune to go through an exit. But never in that experience did I see myself as a tech entrepreneur. Even though I was surrounded by entrepreneurship and technology, I saw myself as a tech worker. Not until I went to something called a startup weekend was it that my mindset changed, that I could actually become a CEO. And through that experience, what ended up happening is I started a company, and that set me on my path to be what I am today, which is a VC at K4 Capital, which is a social impact fund. And the reason I invest is because of all these experiences, not seeing my grandma or grandparents, right, visibly, racially, in the conversation around Latinx and tech, but also because I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. So why I invest is because I believe generational wealth will be created in technology, and I don't want my community to be left behind.
So she mentioned identity, no, during this start. Joe, how do you feel about identity and the Latinx community? What is your experience?
No, this is a question that I think about all the time, and identity is something that's constantly moving. It's fluid, it's malleable, and something that is very personal to me. It took me a really long time to really grow into my sense of a Latino identity, into my deaf identity, into all of the different identities and intersectionality that I have. And there's something beautiful. It's kind of like a canvas with a ton of colors on it. And that's, I think that's a really powerful thing. I'm originally from New York. I am the first in my family to go to college. My family's from Cuba. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that I have a lot of privileges that have gotten me to where I am today. Outwardly, and to most of the world, I appear pretty mainstream, white, and a lot of people take me for that at face value. And because of that, I've been able to navigate in the world in a way that most people haven't. But I want to take that privilege and use it as a way to empower other people, to help elevate them and lift the conversation in a powerful way. In a small way, I see my surname as an act of resistance. I see, it's a small part of my resistance against the status quo. So identity is one of these things that's constantly changing for me, but I want to use it as a way to elevate all of us together as a whole upwards. So, yeah, that's it.
Great. Sole, you've been,
Yes.
You have your personal fight, and you're going to tell us also a little bit about you now, but you have your personal fight regarding gender equality that you've been, showing all over the world this year. So please tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I can speak for hours about this.
We know, but we have...
So, making the story short, I work in a men's club, basically. So I work in cybersecurity, which is the field in technology, which is, let's say, most affected about the lack of diversity. There's no women at all. We are supposed to be 11%, but I actually don't believe in that statistic because I'm there every day. I don't see them, so I don't see the 11%. I only see me and maybe someone else, right? So I have a lot of fights and struggles, and I keep going and I persist and everything. But it's actually very hard because it is my job per se is pretty difficult. So I have another job which is to be a woman. And I have another job, which is to be a Latino person. So it's kind of like 3 full-time jobs, a lot of struggles, but I think, and one of the things about doing this is like, I truly believe that leaning on other people that is going through different or the same kind of struggles or is a Latino in tech, and getting together and trying to find solutions is going to help me and the others, right, to make an easier way not only for us, because maybe we don't get there, but for next generations. So, yeah.
Great. Yesterday I had a lovely conversation with Carolina and also with Lily, but Lily, you mentioned something about social justice, and you're very passionate about it. So while you introduce yourself and show them your leadership skills as well, please,
Sure.
if you can elaborate about that, it would be great.
Yes, I can start a little bit about who I am. So first, here, how many in the audience are immigrants to the U.S.? Raise your hand. Great. Single parent home? Went into STEM career? All right, there we go. Women, or identify as women? All right, awesome. So that's really a little bit of my journey, which was a lot of these different statistics that we grew up saying, like, oh, if you check these boxes, this is the path that you're a way to. And I like to say that you change that. I think that me moving from Bolivia, which is also in the larger discussion of Latin America and being Latinx and being Hispanic, all these different terms that there are. What is your identity? Anyways, right? And for me, I really identify as both. I immigrated from Bolivia when I was 6 years old into California, and I grew up with the duality of being American, but also being Bolivian, and what does this mean, and learning Spanish and learning English as well. But thanks to my mom, how many of you here have like a nice, strong female mother that will like push you? There you go. Yes, thanks to my mom. My mom was really my sole mentor and role model, and she was really tough cooking. And one of the things that stuck with me that I've been able to take personally and professionally is that she likes to raise expectations. She wants me to go to the next level. If I was getting straight A's all through high school, she's like, you can do better. I went to college, I majored in electrical engineering, and she's like, you can do better. Where's your master's? I went on to be aerospace engineer. So I was working on space and satellites, controlled systems. She's like, you can do better. And I'm like, what else is there to be done? And I think what got me really thinking about it is how can I use my talent, my youth, my time, which is one of the most precious things that we have, to apply for solving problems that are really important. Closing access to education, being able to provide the opportunity for somebody like myself to have upward mobility in one generation is one of the goals that she also put in me when I was young. And fast forward, after being in corporate for about 10 years or so, I made the leap to my first nonprofit job. And I'm the Chief Technology Community Officer at the Caper Center. And how many of you know what Caper Center is? All right, if the ones that did not raise your hands, come to visit to Oakland. We're just across the bridge. But the Caper Center is really focused on making tech and entrepreneurship be more inclusive and diverse. And for me, that really brings in not just talking about the gender, but also talking about the intersectionalities. Everybody here, as we started the discussion about identity, there's so many complex things that make us who we are. And to be able to just put it in one layer, it really oversimplifies who we are as complex humans. And so for us at the Caper Center, we really also lead with racial justice to make sure that we understand what is the journey of a woman like myself, Latinx, engineer, but now changed, but also immigrant and whatnot. And I think it's really important to think about what are some of those opportunities in the space that we are in, specifically in technology, where a lot of the growth of the future is coming. A lot of the industries are evolving and changing, but why are we still not filling those gaps? And we all know the problem. I'm not going to go and say, but we need to really look at what are the solutions that are in our communities. And if we don't start to lead with social justice, if we don't start to look specifically at racial justice, economic equality, then we're going to be talking about the surface level. And at the Caper Center, we're really proud of the type of work that we do. It's very hands-on with the community. We work with different community colleges, training organizations, nonprofits. On one side, and the other side, we're also working in helping create more entrepreneurship and really demystify what it means to be an entrepreneur and develop that entrepreneurial mindset. That, as you know, as we're going into exponential technologies, those are the types of skills. In order for us to stay competitive, we're going to have to develop even more.
Lily, you mentioned something really interesting. You know, we know all about the pink elephant, but we're looking for different solutions. And actually, when I was talking to Rocío this week, she mentioned all the work that Latinas in tech are doing, not only giving visibility to Latinas and putting them on the map, but also on mentorship, and not only creating new role models, but also identifying new role models. Rocío, please.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. So yeah, so many years ago that I joined the technology industry, and as a Latina Mexican immigrant, I noticed that not one colleague of mine in 300 people organization was also a Latino. Only the people that clean at night. And that wasn't fun to see. I never had a boss that was a Latino, a colleague in my level that was a Latino, and I have never had one. And why? I mean, look at the percentage of population in California that are Latinos. Why are we not there? We immigrated so many years ago. We're several generations, and we're still not there. And the reason is we really need to push our community up. So we need to first raise your hand and identify yourself as a mentor and take ownership of that and bring in people. Find the newcomers and help them rise and grow with you. So we really started as a group of two, Gretel Pereira and myself, and we were helping each other. And I have a friend and a friend and a friend, and before you know, we're more than 2,000 Latinas in tech. And every other month, we make a meetup where we feature our successful Latinas. We show them, those are your mentors. They are like you. They are no different than you. And we help little girls know that they can. We have dreamers that have become Stanford graduates and CEOs. If they can, why couldn't you? So that's our mission and what we're trying to accomplish, to empower Latinas, help them grow. And we believe that for every mentor we create, we bring in at least 5 more Latinas into the industry.
Great. So I think that through this introduction, we cover the leadership thing, no? So getting into the visibility part, I know that Carolina and Lily, they started with the Startup Weekend in Oakland, and this is a local initiative that now is taking off at the national level. And can you elaborate a little bit more in the sense of what has taken to both of you to actually go from the local level to the national level? And actually, I'm sure that this is something that it can get escalated also to other parts of Latin America or even around the world.
So I guess I'll start with the first, and then Lily maybe talk about the expansion strategy. So as I mentioned in the first, when I was sharing my experience, I always saw myself as the tech worker, right? I didn't tie entrepreneurship, technology, and me being the CEO. So when I went to this startup weekend, this concept of me not seeing my identity represented, and because I identify as multiracial, I looked around the room and said, well, there are no Afro-Peruvians, there are no Chinese Mexicans. Like, why is that community not represented? And rather than complain about it, I went back to my new job and I said, well, I could create a startup weekend myself. But you don't create, and the premise behind it is I saw this community and I realized we could probably create a movement around it. So what happened is I started with this idea, and then I met this amazing woman next to me who's an engineer, and I said, why don't we come together and do this in Oakland and use that as kind of our first prototype and see what could happen through that experience. Fast forwarding on that experience, what happened the day of is we actually saw all racial diversity within our own community. And what struck me from that event is that people came up to me, especially having some part of me that identifies as Afro-Latina, that folks said, for the first time, someone who was Afro-Honduran said, for the first time, I see myself being included as part of the Latinx community. And that was really deep for me, because I thought about just in our community, and we don't talk about this a lot, but for me, it was accepting the fact that often our community, I'm going to generalize, and this could be controversial, is that there is an anti-Indigenous sentiment. There is an anti-Black sentiment in the community. We don't talk about it. When we talk about diversity, we don't talk about diversity in our own community, right? And I'm talking about the Latinx community. And to have someone say that, now for the first time I see myself as part of this community was really powerful. And then Lily had the vision to actually take this to other parts of the country, and would love you to share that.
Sure. Fast forward, this end of September, we went to 4 cities, Oakland, LA, Chicago, and New York. We mobilized over 300 plus participants that included folks who now call themselves founders, mentors, volunteers, as well as other attendees that were new to this movement. We launched in 54 hours, 35 plus new ventures that are led by Latinx folks that look like us, that are representative of what Carolina covered, which is, we have to get past what we're sold as what Latinos look like, right? There's so much more complexity. And in 54 hours, we did that. And not only did this group of 300 plus participants, but what to me, the thing that was the most exciting and meaningful after all of this is said and done, that is that I had the opportunity to mentor, to your point, 40 different community organizers across 4 cities remotely. And I had to sell them on like, yes, in Chicago you can do this, in LA you can do this. In LA, for example, all of them were first-time organizers. Some of them had never even participated in this event. Usually you don't do that. It's supposed to be you participate and you tell your story. But this community was so motivated, and they hadn't had this type of activity in their community in over 2+ years. And in less than 3 months, we were able to create this leadership across all these different areas, who now we have community members that are working together and collaborating and sharing resources that even in their own cities they didn't even know existed. They weren't even connected. They maybe saw themselves from far away. I'm like, oh, the face looks familiar. But now they actually work together. They have results. They have a community that they're going to continue to grow. And to be able to do that in the span of 54 hours, imagine what we can do. We do this every day in and day out. In about 2040, 2050, the black and brown in general and everything in between is going to be the majority of the United States. And if we're not thinking of this as an economic imperative, as a competitive imperative, what are we doing then? This is really, and it includes all of us that are here in this room. In the United States, we are changing, we are evolving. We are not moving our community and the youth and everybody in between now and then. We're going to lose our talent. But we need to move our community to think from just doing and replicating to being the creators. In 54 hours, imagine, there's a story of somebody in LA specifically. This team, they're probably like early 20s, community college students. The shirt that we give them at the end of the event, it says, I created a company in 54 hours. What did you do last weekend? They didn't want to wear the shirt until they presented. I went and I mentored them. I was walking around. They're like, yeah, I'm so excited. I want to really put on this shirt, but I'm not going to put it on until I pitch to the venture capitalists in the room. And you know what? Once they pitched, they're like, look, we're wearing it. And you know what they did at the end? They passed me their business card. They had created a business card and a website during that period of the time. And when folks, I have met a lot of different folks, especially in this city, who are walking around with PowerPoints and no product, who are walking around and having meetings when they shouldn't. They should be building. They should be learning. And this community did this over 54 hours. And I have seen way more great potential businesses launch over that period because they focused, they had the mentorship, they had the opportunity to really, like I shared earlier, to level up. If you raise the expectations, our community will do it. And we need to start raising our expectations. And actually, I see one of our Startup Week in Oakland alumni here, Abel, if you want to say hi. So this is an example of the ecosystem in the movement. Abel actually is from Oakland, did Hack the Hood, Mission Bid, and now he participated at Startup Week in Oakland, and is one of our newest founders. So there you go. That's why we do it.
Thank you, Lily. Joe, talking about talent, there's something that really took, I was paying really attention during our conversation, and you were talking about diversifying the pipeline of startups. That was really important for you. What is your experience with this?
Great question. So this is not about me. This is about all of us. So I want to make sure that this is as practical as possible for everyone here. The way I see it is that we want to create more visibility for the house. We want to unlock the door, and we want to make sure that there's a bed for people to sleep in and food in the fridge. And that's kind of the metaphor of how I think about creating a pipeline and a place for people to feel comfortable in the community, which is the broader tech ecosystem. So one of the questions that I constantly ask is, how can you aspire to something which you do not know? So how can we elevate more people to positions of visibility to set an example for people in the communities that most of us maybe come from or identify with? So when we have panels and speaker events, how can we include more women, LGBTQIA, and underrepresented groups on those panels. How can we frame so oftentimes when I talk to venture capitalist investors, I have to frame the conversation in terms of financial or fiduciary imperatives. Women-led startups actually outperform men's startups. So that's one way that I have to frame the conversation. Startups that are started by underrepresented minorities actually outperform other traditional and dominant groups. And that's one way to get the ear of people who hold the keys to the house. Sponsorship versus mentorship, making sure that you know the distinction. Sponsorship is you're actually invested in the outcomes of the people that you're working with. Mentorship is providing loose, but not necessarily investment in terms of outcomes. We provide free space to underrepresented founders who want to come into our space. Proactively fighting microaggressions. Microaggressions are this kind of nebulous term, but understanding the nuances of pronouns, language, and how can we create a safe space for everyone to feel comfortable and build next generation technologies, and creating a culture of listening, constructive criticism, and growth. Being deaf, I've been endowed with the ability or the privilege of empathizing and really listening to people. Sometimes I could be better at it, but all of those things together create a space where people could actively access the house and build the future that they want for themselves. So,
Thank you, Joe. Actually, you brought up my next question because women, girls, our future, strong communities with strong women and girls. And I know that Rocío and Sole, they have a lot of experience on this arena. We have limited time, so if Rocío and Sole can, share with us their experience in the past year, it would be great.
With the girls?
With the girls.
Well,
and with women.
we have limited time, but one thing that I would like to say is about my experience I have mentoring girls or trying to help girls realize they can do whatever they want, being an engineer or whatever they think of, is actually how easy it is to make an impact, right? So with just a little bit of attention or just presenting them with just a role model, that they see you doing your job. For example, I will have shadow days when the girls will come to my work and spend a whole day with me just seeing what I do. Just with that, which is 3 or 4 hours, that's enough. So it doesn't take that much of work in terms of making impact in young people. So the girls will be in a few hours, will be saying I want to do what you do.
Exactly.
So I think it's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of let's do it. So
I completely agree. We need to believe in ourselves. Many times we just don't believe we are a role model, an example. We even get the imposter syndrome. We are. Just give yourself 5 minutes, open up, invite somebody, and you'll see how they will see you out there and want to be like you very soon, as you mentioned. And thank you for doing that. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
If anybody's curious about our groups, please, you can find us at latinasintech.org. We have a lot of programs coming up, and it's completely free, so feel free to join.
So a last thing that I want to bring up before we run out of time is that it has been said that we're not able to collaborate. So I was talking to Melinda about it, and I said that we will come back next year, and we will show you next year, a year from now, in the fourth Tech Inclusion, how we've been collaborating in the next year. I already have plans for many of them. I've already started working with some of you, and not only locally, but also abroad. And what I want to share with you is that our lack of action affects many, and that's why I'm very proud of all of them. They decided to step up and do something about it. I don't know if you might have any questions, but thank you so much for all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a few seconds for questions.
teach workshops for girls at school about tech. I'm an engineer. And what I've been told by some other people that teach these workshops and these kinds of programs is don't tell young women the statistics. Like, don't even bring up the fact that there's no colored women in tech. Don't tell them about your struggles. Don't tell them about the numbers. And I was wondering, do you subscribe to that? Do you believe that that's effective? Or do you believe it's better to tell them from the get-go about the struggles that they'll face?
I'd love to. Can I give an answer? I personally, this is very personal, and feel free to disagree. I would advocate to not discourage them. I think that if I was a little girl and I heard of those statistics, I might have not tried. What you need to do is to make them trust in their capacity and their power. Empower them to go further and not to listen. If we really guide ourselves by stereotypes and statistics, we're going to start victimizing ourselves. And we don't, that just plays as a secondary role. It's not that it doesn't exist, it exists. But the vast majority of change you can do within yourself. So to empower them into controlling that part, and the rest won't matter. It really won't matter if they really try hard and stand up for what they believe in they can do. That is my belief. What do you think?
Well, I disagree a little bit, which I think you're right, but I also will choose to speak the truth and tell them what it's not that they are against that, but this is what it is. So it can be a thing for them, actually, to encourage them to be pioneers, for example. So you need to figure it out a way of engage them, right? So I think that's very powerful. It's like, go for it, and you're gonna be one of the first females leading this tech world, for example. I will do that, so.
Any other question? No? Oh, apparently we have to stop, but please join us, see us, talk to us, and we would love you to get involved with all the initiatives that we are right now working on and sharing with you. Thanks.
Thank you.